After a long time, Khan woke up from a merry sleep, although he could work day and night without breaks or eating anything for weeks. The mental drain was something that would easily burn you out both physically and psychologically. As if you were an author kept writing many chapters for a novel on a daily basis, for example. In the current situation, the Bloodborne Enterprise now had a monopoly over the weapons arms business in Rukon district. And with the official backing and support from dozens of top-ranking clans of the Empire. Rukon district that ranged to nearly 200 kilometers from one end to another was now Khan's turf. Every other arms dealer had left the competition. And the district, which was only known for the commerce related to alchemy products and resources, was now also getting famous as the district where the Bloodborne Company was located and the Grandmaster blacksmith, Albestros Winston, lived. After the clans who started selling his products in different districts under their own management, the amount of business offers Khan was receiving were increasing every day. And the S-rank cores he received were also proving very useful as he rose to level 138. Rising by 13 levels in the past month alone. If this continued, Khan was certain that he'd reach level 200 within a year, meeting one of the conditions to reach the saint rank and enter the realm of these godly beings. But before that, there were still a few things he had to take care of. And those were namely learning proper magic and studying the dimensional law. He could no longer afford to delay these two factors. Otherwise, he would regret it later and curse himself for not perfecting his skills and mastery, because they were all important to keep himself alive. Even with all the skills he absorbed and created, Khan was feeling far inferior and weak after watching the first stage Saint Mage wiping out the enemies and surrounding 5-kilometer area just with his normal spells and attacks. Compared to him, Khan only had magic skills and spells to use them because of the ability absorption divine ability, but no real knowledge or techniques behind them. Even now, he only had noob-level knowledge and understanding about mana itself. Fake it till you make it was the current approach Khan had till now for the magic department. So now that he was finally settled and had people to run the company in his absence, his next target was to learn magic and study the space law on the side. Stability peace was within his reach. So all he had to do now was gradually increase his levels and skills so that he could become a saint soon and decide whether to stay in this empire or not. But for now, he finally had something of his own in this new world. Something worth protecting and fighting for. I guess I should meet him now that things are all settled, said Khan and looked forward to the night. That very night in Khan's new grand mansion, he bought recently and lived with all of his subordinates and Albestros. Despite the old blacksmith's reluctance, Khan brought him to live in this new place because neither was the old building secure and fitting for them to live any longer. They were more likely to be looked down upon by others now if they still lived there given their current wealth and reputation. But Khan already made arrangements for having the property managed and keep it well maintained. The new home looked like a castle from the Victorian era with plenty of defensive measure structures installed. And the main reason why Khan chose this costly place to live was because it had an underground training facility spanned for 2 kilometers and was magically fortified to even not break down from an attack of a semi-saint fighter. This was going to be his new training grounds of magical skills and combat techniques he wanted to learn and practice. And this applied the same for his subordinates who also needed to perfect their skills and weapon mastery. It was so big and wide that even Blackwell would easily fit in there. For all his subordinates except Rudra, there was everything they needed to keep raising their strength. As the night finally came, Khan had new servants prepare for a small feast. There were 52 new servants he hired who looked after the property and worked in different professions. Even the chef he hired was a peak master rank chef and had a salary of 1,000,000 gold coins. The servants were all experts in their fields. All the subordinates who had taken a human form had rooms and areas to live in this 3-story grand mansion within the 4-kilometer radius of the entire property. Khan finally experienced what it meant to be living like truly rich people. The 400 master rank guards were also paid very well, and unless a semi-saint attacked this force, they would be even able to kill a peak grandmaster fighter together. At this moment, he felt a sense of relief and already started imagining about his retirement and living his remaining days peacefully like an old man who lived a content life. Who said money doesn't buy happiness. It helps you buy things that can make you happy. Knock, knock. "Sir, they're here," said Alfred, Khan's new butler. The old man with gray hair and a mustache was the head of Khan's new servants team and also the main attendee. If Bryan Cranston's Walter White had gray hair and mustache, he would just look like Alfred. "I see. Let's go," replied Khan and went to greet his guests who just arrived. In front of the main entrance of his mansion came a highly luxurious carriage made for royalty and escorted by a dozen of beginner Grandmaster soldiers. As the welcome ceremony and formal etiquettes were performed, a regal appearance of a slim, silver-haired young vampire exited the carriage. "Welcome to my humble abode, Lord Clan Heir," said Khan as he slightly bowed. "Haha, you surely jest. There's no need for such type of formality between us, Brother Khan," spoke the vampire. It was none other than Sale Moore Vandereyck. But the next second, another slim and beautiful figure exited from the carriage and Khan's expression turned somber, and his eyes filled with absolute hatred and bloodlust as soon as he saw this new addition. "What the hell is she doing here?" shouted Khan as he pointed his forefinger towards a princess-like female vampire who was dressed in a white and golden armor set. This person was someone who tried to kill Khan was one of the members of the group that tried to kill him previously. It was no one else but Vivian Moore Vandereyck. In front of the main entrance door of the mansion were 2 rows of servants dressed in black and white along with the 2 different Ks of armored guards placed opposite to each other. Stood a man in the middle, dressed in a combination of dark blue aristocratic long coat and with the high-grade and costly black pants and boots. Khan welcomed the guests for this small gathering between acquaintances. His and Sale's relationship as friends was already out in the open, so there was no need for secret meetings anymore. But after seeing the new addition, namely Vivian, who was also one of the people who wanted him dead, Khan was taken aback. Because although he saw how Vivian burned the traitors, he knew that her punishment was inevitable even if she was the clan leader's daughter. Because as per his knowledge from Sale, their clan put the rules and doctrine of the clan above lineage everything else. "Tell me, what is she doing here?" asked Khan in a stern tone, trying to hide his anger as he clenched his fists tightly. "Ah, about that. Let's talk inside. It's not something we can talk about in public," spoke Sale as the merry and pleasant welcome witnessed by hundreds of onlookers. The servants and soldiers from both sides wasn't exactly a good place to reveal clan secrets. Khan nodded in response and calmed his mind. The soldiers who came as security for Sale were escorted by his own, as the soldiers also had food and entertainment waiting for them on a side of this grand property. After giving them a small tour of the main areas of the new mansion, they stood in the main hall of the mansion. This room was filled with luxurious furniture, dozens of intrinsically decorated ornaments, statues, and artistic paintings. Every inch of the hall expressed wealth and prestige. Sale sat on a luxurious and comfortable sofa, and Khan sat on the opposite end along with Albestros. The Grandmaster Blacksmith's expression was no different than Khan's when he saw Vivian. He was also present there that day and already knew how she was one of the people who wanted the ruin of their company and also kill both him Khan. For some reason, Vivian didn't sit on the sofa and stood behind Sale, acting like a complete and aloof stranger. She didn't even look at Khan or Albestros straight in the eyes. "Before you ask too many questions, allow me to clear out the confusion. She has gone through a core-binding ritual with me," said Sale. "What?" exclaimed Albestros with eyes full of shock and bewilderment. Khan was confused, so he asked with a curious expression on his face, "What's this core-binding ritual? You don't know about it yet?" "Well, not many know about this ritual anyway. Her core has been bound to Sale. She is now unable to kill him or herself and forced to follow every single command of the one she's bound to," replied Albestros with a complicated and thoughtful countenance. Khan was surprised by this revelation and asked in a curious tone, "Doesn't that mean she's basically Sale's slave now?" "Not exactly, because slaves at least have their own emotions, and in case the master dies, they will still live on. But as for her case, if Sale dies, she dies as well. And as the years pass, little by little, her consciousness will be taken over by the core-binding magic. In a decade or so, she will have no free will of her own or possess any sentience. She will be an emotionless puppet, only living for the sake of serving the master. Her life will have no meaning left to it. Her fate is worse than death," elaborated the old Grandmaster Blacksmith. He was also an artificer, so he knew how these binding rituals worked. It was the same method he used on the Dracos armor Va Lucifer when he made them for Khan. But doing it on inanimate objects was one thing, but to perform this core binding ritual using archaic formations and subjecting a sentient being with the pain of that procedure. Albestros could imagine the amount of trauma Va torture to the body and soul Vivian went through during the ritual. Khan, on the other hand, looked at Vivian again. Only now did he notice a small teardrop gathering over her eyelids. But instead of feeling sad towards the fate of this vampire heiress, Khan let out a wide grin instead. He looked at Sale and gave him an understanding gaze. "Stand still, do not resist or retort," commanded Sale. Khan then stood up and walked close to Vivian as he pulled up the sleeve of his long coat. He stood right in front of Vivian and took a deep breath. Slap! 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 Multiple loud crisps of slaps filled the entire hall. Even the servants who stood near the borders of the walls were shocked. Vivian's cheeks were turned red and visible finger marks on them. Khan hadn't held back in the slightest bit when he slapped her. "You know, the only reason you're still alive is because you're the daughter of the clan leader. Otherwise, I would have killed you so quickly that you wouldn't even realize how you died. It was one thing if you wanted me dead. But you and your people came after innocents around me, and hundreds of families were destroyed, although I compensated them with a hefty amount. Still not enough. You're nothing but a trash who looks down upon the lives of everyone because you feel entitled about your birth and species. People like you should be put behind cells to rot till your death," said Khan angrily. "Kid, that's enough," spoke the old Grandmaster. Hitting a woman or someone whose fate was already sealed didn't sit right with him because of his moral code. But instead of listening to Albestros, Khan's face turned sinister instead. He let out a devious grin as he inspected Vivian's body from head to toe. That look alone sent shivers down Vivian's spine, but she couldn't speak or run away because of the command. Khan then bit his lips and spoke in an evil tone. "Oh, this is not even the beginning. Now let's begin the real fun." At this moment, inside the main hall of the new grand mansion where Khan Va the gang currently lived, a beautiful and elegant vampire woman who looked in her mid-20s by appearance was thoroughly insulted. To Vivian, it felt like a stab in her heart as the once mighty and powerful clan heiress and one of the most beautiful females in the entire empire who was sought after by millions of males, had thousands of letters for marriage proposals monthly, was now slapped in the face by a commoner. Unlike her, Khan had no lineage or a powerful background. He was but a nobody of low birth and wasn't even worth thinking about twice, compared to the clan heirs within their own faction and in Rathna alone. The human that slapped and insulted her was but a measly bug who she would be able to squash at any moment with just a word. But in her current predicament, not only she couldn't do anything to get back at him, she couldn't even speak or move because her body wasn't even in her own control ever since the core binding ritual. Sale, the useless and incompetent stepbrother of hers, who wasn't even a Grandmaster rank magician yet despite being nearly 60 years old, now held the leash on her life. His commands were like the second nature of her body already. Forget trying to break through it. Her body didn't even allow her to use mana or any form of force to put resistance against his commands. If Sale told her to stab herself with her sword, she would end up doing it anyway. Vivian could barely contain her cries and sadness in her heart after being consumed with rage, but was not even able to speak a word. Everything was supposed to happen just like she wanted after months of planning and using a perfect decoy. Under the name of neutral faction declaring a war against the pureblood faction and killing hundreds of their clan heirs of the strongest clans, Sale was supposed to get killed on the same day. But all of their plans were thwarted because of one no-name human who appeared at the last moment and saved Sale's life. Although she had tried to have Khan killed on 2 occasions already, he still managed to live on. "I'm going to kill both these bastards one day. They've ruined everything. Just wait till I find a way to break this curse," thought Vivian. But after Khan gave an insidious grin after looking at her body, a newfound sense of immense danger was created in her mind. rather than looking like a handsome man with classic robes of a noble. Khan's figure suddenly appeared like a demon lord with absolutely nothing but malice in his gaze. Tell her that she can fight and even kill me if she wants to. I'll teach her some lessons on both of our behalf, said Khan. Sale agreed with this proposition. Now, he had no care for Vivian as a person or someone from his family after knowing what she thought about him. As soon as he gave the command, Khan quickly used the domain artifact and both he and Vivian were encapsulated in a dark domain, completely secluded from the rest of the world. Now then, show me what you got. I will not hesitate from breaking your bone or putting my foot on your head, declared Khan and quickly released war dominance at full capacity. With the Hero of Darkness title in effect, he was already 3 times stronger than his peak. One by one, multiple barriers released from Vivian's body and protected her from Khan's murderous aura. And now that she could speak in this isolated domain, Vivian didn't hold back from speaking her true intentions. You human scum. Don't think that this shall be the end of Vivian Moore Vandereyck. One day, I will trample upon everything you love and care about. And when that time comes, I'm going to make you watch all of it with your own eyes, shouted her vampire heiress with a wrathful gaze and stared at the man in front of her. Oh, is that so? First, you need to be at least on my level. Or is it that you plan to have your little servants do it for you? Oh wait, you don't even have any more servants. You yourself are nothing but a slave now. Didn't you hear Albestros? In just a decade, you will become a lifeless husk of your current self. Boy, would I love to see your face then, spoke Khan with a mischievous tone. He was kicking Vivian down when she was at her lowest but didn't feel bad in the slightest. Khan summoned Lucifer after 2 months for the first time. The last time he did was on the day he and Vivian clashed. Show me your motivation, said Khan and quickly used the Sword King skill as he created more than 100 aura swords made from different elements. He lowered his aura so Vivian could move and then simply pointed Lucifer in her direction. Swoosh! Swoosh! Dozens of flying swords dashed and attacked Vivian. Clang! 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 Vivian was left with no choice but to dodge and parry the swords attacking her, as the force behind every single of these swords was something she could barely tackle head-on. She used multiple defensive artifacts to cover her entire body in protection barriers and gathered her mana to launch an attack. In just a dozen of attacks, Vivian was already forced 10 steps behind and her arms were barely keeping up with the fast attacks. Forget attacking Khan or fight on even terms. She was thoroughly oppressed from the very beginning. What kind of nonsense is this? I've trained with semi-saint swordsmen before. Why is he so many times stronger than them? Asked Vivian. She herself was a peak Grandmaster swordswoman, so she easily understood the difference in strength by just a few of these exchanges. Don't think just because I'm currently not favored by my clan, you can actually injure or kill M. Before she could finish the sentence, an unimaginable pain suddenly hit her mind. Arar! Screamed Vivian after her brain finally registered a black greatsword plunged in her left thigh. Vivian dropped on the ground. She didn't even see when Khan attacked her with this great sword with the speed of light. The barriers broke instantly and she was poked before she could even feel the attack coming from 10 meters ahead. To her screaming and wailing figure, Khan only replied solemnly with a devilish grin. I'm not gonna kill you. I'm just gonna hurt you really, really bad. Inside the secluded domain were a young man and a vampire girl who were confessing their extreme affection towards each other through the classic method of exchanging their blades. Boom! Vivian collided on the walls of the domain and groaned in pain. This place was already 1 kilometer wide inside the domain space, and from the past few minutes, Khan had been flinging her body again and again with every swing and of his sword. Even the epic rank sword in her hand was vibrating and cracking after defending against the semi-saint human. Currently, Vivian, the reputed and powerful clan heiress who had thousands of people at her beck and call, was now reduced to a punching bag by the man in front of her. Come on, get up. I still haven't enjoyed enough yet, said Khan as he appeared next to her body and kicked her in the stomach. Arg! Wailed Vivian as her body caved in from the kick and she was flung in the air. Thud! Thud! She rolled over on the ground and spat out blood from her mouth. Cough! Cough. You're never getting away with this, shouted Vivian and got up. Tonight, her pride was thoroughly being trampled upon and toyed with for the first time in her life. A low birth nobody was now treating her like a random henchman of some street gang and beating her like a thug on a street. Khan, on the other hand, was releasing fear toxin from his vacant hand while beating and flinging her so she wouldn't notice anything. And slowly, a white fog started condescending in this domain, filling their surrounding area with the hallucinogenic smoke. When Vivian finally started noticing the fog around her, it was too late for her as she had already inhaled a lot of this toxic air. And soon as her senses started dulling, the tall and black-haired enemy of hers started giving off a chaotic aura as his appearance started changing little by little in her eyes. Crack! A roar! Wailed Vivian in agony as Khan appeared behind her and broke her forearm with a single punch. But instead of letting her scream more, Khan quickly let go of Lucifer and grabbed her neck and lifted her. I hear you're very proud of your face. Well, you're indeed very beautiful. Only if people could see the true hideous nature of yours, said Khan. How about I give you a makeover? He said with a smirk. Punch, punch, punch. Khan's left fist, full of force enough to break a medium boulder, landed on her face. Thwack, thwack. One after another, the fists hit her beautiful face as her lips and nose started bleeding profusely. Just in 3 minutes, her entire innocent-looking face was swollen up and her cheeks were also bleeding. Every single punch of his hit like a hammer in the face, and the grip on her neck almost choked her to death as well. He then threw her on the ground and stepped on her legs. Crack, crack, ah! She screamed with all her might. This was exactly what Khan intended to do when he was staring at her figure before. Not to do anything lewd to her as someone of the opposite gender, but to decide which bones he would break. Crack! Khan broke the bones in her right arm and then the right leg. One by one he was breaking bones in her body. The domain was filled with hoarse and pitiful cries of this female vampire. Stop screaming and moaning like this. If anyone heard us, they'd say I am doing indecent things to you, he said in an irritated tone. He didn't care if she was a beautiful girl or felt the need to hold back because she was a woman. Because if the roles were reversed, Vivian would have his head on a pike just because he ruined her plans. Who knew how many innocent lives this 76-year-old vampire girl had taken in order to reach her goals? Khan was certain that her count completely overshadowed his own. Khan was using her sudden appearance and her being bound to sail as a slave to finally let off all the guilt and anger he had amassed over the month. Even though he always prioritized on looking after his own benefits, he still hadn't grown numb to killing or deaths to the point where he wouldn't care if someone innocent was caught in crosshairs because of him. First with Jessica and now with his employees. He did that mistake twice already, and both times, he hadn't thought of the consequences as he wasn't the center of attention during those incidents. So all the anger he had stored up was finally being let out, and he was beating up the main culprit behind the incident, with the fear toxin effect kicking in. Khan appeared as a gigantic and burning demon to Vivian, who didn't even have any strength left to scream at this point. Kill me. Please. Kill me. Pleaded Vivian, her eyes full of fear as she begged for a swift death. What she was experiencing now wasn't anything different than someone on the verge of inevitable death. But they couldn't die even if they wanted to. Khan pulled her hair up and looked right in the eyes of this heiress, whose face was now all bleeding and bruised up. His eyes were full of wrath and immense bloodlust. Wish I could, sweetheart, but sadly I can't. But remember, if you ever come after me or anyone related to me, I will kill you, and I won't care about the consequences or the wrath of your clan and any other bullshit. There won't be mercy next time. Do you understand me? Declared Khan. Controlling the immense pain in her body, Vivian nodded in response. If not for her being a vampire who had a lot of vitality and physical health recovery rate because of their species and bloodline advantage, she would have passed out a long time ago already. Khan took a high-grade health recovery potion out of his space ring and poured it in her mouth. After a dozen minutes, she was back to her old appearance thanks to her bloodline and the potion, since her body was already of a peak grandmaster. Khan wanted to scar her for life so she would never dare to go against him or target anyone related to him since he couldn't directly kill her. But he wasn't like Naofumi either, who let Malti go just with the name like bitch because she was royalty or belonged to the nobility. He already knew how mercy to your enemies would cost you later. But he couldn't kill her because of his current strength and the trouble it will bring later. So in a way, it was her first and final warning to ensure about the consequences of coming in his way ever again. It was a lesson that would be etched in her mind till her last moments. After Vivian changed into new armor while Khan kept his gaze in the opposite direction, he deactivated the domain artifact. But as soon as their figure was revealed out of the dark barrier, everyone was left speechless. Sale, on the other hand, shouted in surprise, "Did you just take her virginity?" An awkward silence filled the main hall after Sale's sudden question took everyone by surprise. Even the sullen and nearly lifeless eyes of Vivian were wide open after this abrupt question that came out of nowhere. Hey, what the hell are you talking about?" asked Khan in a flustered tone. Even Vivian, whose face was all sullen and ashen, as she still hadn't recovered from the scary and inhumane treatment Khan gave her a few minutes ago, was suddenly brought back to reality. "I just found out that I share a sense of mental link with her. And through the connection, I felt like she was in immense pain, but also pleasure," explained Sale. Khan's ears perked up and his eyes were wide open after hearing Sale's words. So in conclusion, Vivian was not only suffering but also getting ecstatic from all the pain? Masochist. She's a closet masochist, thought Khan, because only that could explain how Sale felt that emotion from her inside the domain. Huff, huff. Vivian huffed, and for some sweat dropped from her forehead, and for reasons unknown. Her face had a red tinge all over it. To everyone except Khan, it looked as if Vivian had just done something tiresome. What the hell? Why is she acting like a holy maiden so suddenly? He thought. Khan came close to Sale and whispered the truth in his ear. The vampire clan heir then nodded in response. But to all the servants present in the hall, they all reached a common consensus in their minds together, that their owner was a scum. It was one thing him slapping her, but after taking her to the domain, he did the ding-dong-do with the poor woman. Vivian's figure also looked very fatigued, and her long silver hair also looked a bit disheveled. All the maids who saw this ordeal instantly got a very low impression of Khan, as all of them scorned him in their minds. Khan then ordered the maids to arrange the dinner table as they headed for the room to talk over the rest of the things there. But as soon as they started walking, everyone whose eyes were already on the heiress also found something very odd. Khan also metaphorically face-bombed himself after noticing the change in Vivian, because after they moved to the dining room, Vivian started walking funnily. As if her legs and thighs were very weak, her way of walking looked very unbalanced. This cemented everyone's former beliefs about the happenings inside the domain. Little did everyone know that it was because Khan actually stabbed right through them with this sword and then broke her bones. Khan felt like crying at this moment. The torture he did to Vivian in the name of final warning also pleasured her, and in return and his reputation amongst the people also hit rock bottom. Even Albestros gave Khan a look of contempt and created some distance. Omega, who stood at the far end, grinned and gave Khan a thumbs up as if he was happy that his master finally had some good time. The whole thing was inexplicable to everyone. There was no way left for Khan to redeem himself at this point. "Somebody wake me up from this horrible dream," cursed Khan. When they finally sat on the long dinner table and were served with delicacies and different types of dishes varying from rare monsters' meat to exotic drinks, this was far beyond anything he saw so far. The new chef lived up to his reputation and served them the feast of gods. But just when Vivian was about to sit, an obsolete command landed on her ears. "Who said you can sit? Stand near the wall," ordered Sale as he gave a hateful look to her. Vivian was rooted on the spot. This clearly wasn't her day so far. First, she was beaten to death by Khan, and now, she wasn't even allowed to sit and eat all the aromatic and delicate food that was just an inch away from her. Albestros, who was a kind person at heart, found both Khan Va Sale's treatment of the girl extremely disappointing. But these two brats were actually grinning even after their childish behavior like some sadists. But to Khan Vassail, this felt like a little win as they couldn't kill the vampire girl and hence, even these childish shenanigans felt very pleasing to them. My hands hurt. Pour me some wine, ordered Sale to his stepsister who wanted him dead for a long time. He was thoroughly enjoying bullying her now. When the dinner finally ended and Khan went on a small stroll around the open grounds of his new home, it was only him Vassail at this moment. Tell me, Mr. Khan, what is your plan for the future? Asked Sale as both the men tread from the lush green open ground under the serene and tranquil moon. Just Khan is fine. We can be considered friends now, right? He joked. As for the plans, I think I'm gonna take a break. The past 2 months since I came here have been very hectic. Many things happen very quickly and I still find it hard to believe that I am in my current position in such a short time. Well, I did learn some harsh lessons in the meantime, but I think that's enough for now at least, replied Khan truthfully. I agree. Even my world turned around by a lot in just the past 2 months. Before, I didn't even have any confidence in myself or felt like I deserved to be our clan's heir. Everything in my life has been handed to me, but now that I found out about how the people I once looked up to tried to kill me just because I was weak, I have learned a profound aspect of life itself, said Sale as both of them slowly walked on the windy and open ground. And what is that? Asked Khan. Sale took a deep breath and spoke with resolute eyes. That power rules everything. A soft and refreshing breeze passed by the two young men who were expressing their honest thoughts to each other after summarizing the events of the past couple of months. Oh, you're realizing that now? Asked Khan as he chuckled. Not exactly. It's something I always knew but never truly realized the weight and depth behind those words. You may as well call me someone born with a golden spoon for that. But my world has always been different than other people. Till now, I've never truly worked hard to become strong. I had resources, people, excellent teachers, but not even once did I give my best at achieving anything. And after becoming a peak master rank magician, I haven't been able to move forward for more than 2 decades now. If I was strong, no one would have thought of my life as expendable, said Sale as he sighed deeply. The last part, I agree. If you think about it, both of us were nothing but small pawns for your father Va, the pureblood faction, if I'm being honest. They used your life being targeted as an excuse to justify killing their enemies. Va used me after saving you as means to set a bait. Who knows how many people are involved behind all of this, said Khan as he folded his hands behind his back. Sale, who heard it, knew that Khan's insinuation was indeed true. His father used Khan as bait while his grandfather used the whole thing as means to kill more than 50,000 members of the demi-human faction under the pretense of exacting revenge. In the end, both were just means used to hide their true intentions and mask a rivalry. But since beggars can't be choosers, both of them had no choice but to swallow down this punch in the face simply because they were weak Va powerless in front of the true powerhouses who sat at the top. Both of them shared a sense of similarity in that aspect. Oh, by the way, there's something I wanted to tell you. It's not out of the clan's close circle yet, but after the execution ceremony, the cores of the traitors that remained were gathered. Unlike others, the core of a saint can't be destroyed easily. There was a 5th stage saint amongst the traitors, an elder of the clan to be precise. His core was given to my father for him to absorb it and become a 5th stage saint in the upcoming decade, said Sale and revealed a top secret of his clan. What? Doesn't that mean all the other clans also have the cores of their saints gathered after the execution ceremony? And why are you telling me this? Isn't it too risky? Asked Khan in a surprised tone. Because it is indeed related to you in a way, so I felt like I should warn you, replied the vampire heir. Me? How? Don't tell me I provoked someone from your clan again, said Khan with a grim expression. Nothing like that. But something weird happened recently. Do you remember Caraberos, the 1st stage saint magician? Asked Sale. Of course. What about him? Wasn't he also burned along with the others? Asked Khan curiously. Yes, but during the gathering procedure, his core went missing, explained the silver-haired vampire. Gasp! Khan gasped in surprise after the revelation. This old mage was the one who targeted him and had the Chamber of Commerce create trouble for him and even had his people killed. After the vampire lord caught him that day, this old and bald mage was used as a means to find the other traitors within their clan, and then those people to find the other traitors hidden within their entire faction of 300 powerful clans. The old mage was the very reason Khan learned a very harsh lesson recently. But to have his core gone missing, and that too in the main headquarters of their clan. This was something completely unexpected. Watching Khan's surprised face, Sale nodded and spoke again. Don't worry, it's not coming to bite you back this time. There was an investigation in the clan, but the culprit hasn't been caught yet. But we are certain that it was one of the clan's inner people because I went to oversee the harvesting process and found out about the missing core. We've taken enough security measures to find the culprits. I just felt like you should know, said Sale. For the rest of the night till midnight finally came. Khan va Sale spent the rest of their time chatting about their future plans and in a way, ended up deepening their friendship. Not just for the sake of it but to truly become friends with each other. Both of them let go of their previous pretenses and fake acts of helping each other. Since both of them were in a similar situation now, a form of kinship was formed between and for the first time. Khan felt like he indeed found someone who also related to him, albeit in a completely different way. But during the moment he was shaking hands with Sale to bid the vampire heir farewell, a black shadow suddenly jumped from the shadow of the vampire and mixed with Khan's. After Sale va, his entourage finally left and everyone went back to their rooms for sleeping. Khan stood in his new master bedroom. He quickly used the domain artifact again to seclude the entire space around him, and a lean and muscular, long black-haired man with green eyes who was clad in black assassin clothes appeared next to him. So, I assume you succeeded, said Khan. The figure in front of him was none other than Ronan, who appeared for the first time after a month. Yes, master. It did exactly as you commanded me to do, said Ronan in a ghastly and stoic voice. The next second, he took out a box from his space ring and handed it to Khan. Khan then opened the lid and the entire domain was filled with bright light, and a white orb that sized as big as Khan's fist was revealed. Khan grinned happily after looking at this orb, and spoke with a greedy excited expression. Finally! The core of a first-stage saint. On the very night when Caraberos, the first-stage saint magician vampire, was surrounded and then defeated by Ismatrazel, before they met. Khan passed Ronan to Sale's shadow when they stood in a warship and watched the two godly saints fight. At that point, Khan was already aware that the fourth-stage saint swordsman and leader of this vampire clan had been using him since the very beginning. That he was using Khan's shoulder to shoot a gun. And he turned the young man who saved his son's life into a chess piece in his schemes before Khan even knew it. This left a bad taste in his mouth, so Khan wanted to use Ronan, who also had his shadow walk skill now, which allowed the assassin-class fighter to completely hide and submerge in someone's shadow without even leaking or revealing the smallest bit of your aura. Ronan was to be his planted spy who would later reveal the real intentions of the clan leader and the vampire clan, to see whether they were trustworthy or he had to think of them as his enemies. Khan learned that day about how he wasn't always the smartest person in the room. Some had far more wisdom and experience than him. So Khan took the opportunity and used Ronan as his inside man who would hide and then know everything and all the inner plannings of the clan through Sale. That was the primary Khan then did the same with all the members of the Chamber of Commerce this time. The subordinates had been reporting any suspicious activity by the council members to him for the past month. But since Sale lived in a very highly protected area that was filled with hundreds of magic formations, barriers and detection traps, it wasn't possible for Ronan to return and report to Khan casually at all. Besides, the headquarters of the Vanderite clan was more than 600 kilometers away from where Khan lived. So there was no form of communication he could do with the rogue-class subordinate either. Khan already ordered Ronan to commit suicide with an explosion just like a suicide bomber in case he was caught by someone. Since he could always revive the subordinate by spending high-grade monster cores and mana ores, it was something affordable at that time. But everything changed on the day when the Pureblood faction suddenly announced an empire-wide grand execution ceremony of the traitors. After Khan conversed with Sale through the Jade Medallion, he also learned that all of the traitors caught, including Caraberos, were going to be killed in the evening. Suddenly, Khan's had an idea as a very risky yet extremely rewarding plan hatched in his mind. What he aimed to do was steal one of the first stage saint's core. Because he would never be able to kill a first stage saint rank by himself even with the help of all his allies and subordinates. And neither was his relationship with the Vanderite clan that good for them to hand him a saint's core either. Plus, inhabitants of Vantria didn't just eat cores and rose in ranks like him. They had to spend months and in some cases, years to physically maintain contact and absorb the mana stored within these cores. Only Khan was one of the oddities because of the ability absorption divine ability. And if he suddenly rose to a first stage saint rank after a short time of getting the core, his identity as one of the chosen heroes would be at risk of being exposed to the top powers of the Empire. No way he would be able to hide that fact since the aura around the saints was completely different than the ranks below them. So there was only one choice left, and that was to steal it. On the day of the execution, there were millions of citizens heading to their respective clan headquarters throughout Rathna. Khan disguised as one of the people in the crowd heading towards the headquarters of the vampire clan, and used Shadow Walk to travel through the thousands of vampires that were gathered in the main headquarters where the grand execution ceremony was held. And when he finally came into the inner circle and reached in 10 kilometers proximity to Sale, he could finally talk with the subordinate. Khan specifically told Ronan about his plans and how he had to carefully steal the core of a first stage saint. Coincidentally, Caraberos was the only one at that rank amongst the traitors. Rest were above Va below him. But being greedy here wasn't the best choice either. If the cores of all these saints went missing, Khan would be in deep shit sooner or later. If they found out, he would be dead for sure, and the heat it would bring back to him was something he couldn't deal with even now. Besides, Khan couldn't even use the cores of the saints of higher stages. Dealing with that issue later was a more reasonable choice than completely enraging the top powerhouses of this clan and dying a painful death. When the night finally fell and only the ashes of the traitors were left on the execution ground after cooling down, Ronan passed from Sale to Shadows of the Guards and then used the dark of the night to steal the core, using his assassination skills and the fear toxin to divert the guards stationed as security. After he successfully stole the core, he waited for an opportunity to leave the place, but the best chance he got was when Sale came with a group of Grandmaster rank soldiers to collect the cores and safely escort them. Luckily, there were no monitoring devices or artifacts present here, as no one would ever imagine someone infiltrating and stealing from the clan right in their main headquarters. Using the dark shadows and carefully masking his presence, he again hid in Sale's shadow, as that was the best choice to meet Khan again. Even without the direct commands from his master, Ronan was already very careful and intelligent, inheriting Khan's opportunistic and patient behavior to perfectly execute the task. And since no one would dare to inspect the clan's heir and the candidate for clan leader's position in the future, no one even dared to inspect Sale after a thorough investigation was done by the clan, which resulted in some of the soldiers getting imprisoned for failing their duties. And ever since then, he had been hiding and waiting to get out and meet Khan all this time. Khan, on the other end, was completely consumed with thousands of things to do in the past month after the deal with the 8 big clans and the saints who visited him that day. But since the system hadn't notified him, he knew that Ronan was still alive. Just that it was unclear whether he succeeded or failed the task. And during his conversation with Sale he had a couple of hours ago, he had all his questions answered by the clan heir. He wasn't traced or even considered as one of the suspects. Khan held the bright and glowing white core in his hands after Ronan appeared after 1 month. Even though he wasn't proficient in using or sensing the world energy, he still could feel the extremely condensed world energy within this fist-sized core. Just by touching the core, he felt an immense reserve of energy that can be used for destroying the army of tens of thousands if used properly. And this was just a first-stage saint's core. The cores of the higher stage saints would be far powerful and contain more energy inside them. "Well done," said Khan as he nodded at Ronan, who successfully managed to steal this core from the headquarters of the Vanderite clan and remained untracked, waiting patiently for this exact moment. Khan let out a content sigh as he looked at the core with a joyous smile. Khan finally had one of the main sources to become a saint, which was also the hardest one to get. He wasn't stupid to even think about killing a bona fide saint himself after looking at how the mage oppressed the army of 10,000 and didn't even receive a scratch from those destructive magic cannons that could obliterate hundreds of Khan together. Finally, half of the battle is won, said Khan as he put the first stage saint's core in his personal space ring. He gave 1,000 SS rank cores to Ronin as his reward and decided that it was time for the subordinate to take some time off and rise in levels just like the others. All Khan needed now was time. By his estimation, he would need at least half a year to reach level 200, and then he could finally become a certified saint. A realm that was in a way a realm above the mortals and felt more like pseudo-gods. Khan laid on his bed and spoke in a tired voice. Finally, I have everything I needed. 1 week passed after his reunion with Sale. Khan now had a different set of priorities given the fact that he was finally done with establishing himself in the capital, had no need to worry about money, resources, and even had the backing of some of the top clans and saint rank figures behind him. To the current him, it was already more than enough, as his goal wasn't to trample the heavens, but to create a safe haven for himself, where he could be without worries about the things he thought he needed when he came to Rathna 3 months ago. Most of it involved him getting targeted via having to face economical pressure. And after the incident with the Vanderite clan, Khan was now a wiser person to not even trust his closest of friends. He had done this mistake with Arkham Va Solomon once, and now the clan leader of the vampire clan cemented that lesson in his mind. And the other lesson was that even sparing innocent lives from the enemy side had its consequences. It was either you or them. Now Khan didn't even trust the people who worked for him, let it be in his company or his house. In the past week, he had been making arrangements for the much-needed break he wanted. Cyril Va Omega were now introduced to the company management as the only 2 people who were authorized to make decisions and approve any big transactions. The teams of people in logistics and management were ordered to report everything to them since both of them were free and no longer had different places to handle. Currently, Cyril handled the new main headquarters. Jugram Va Omega handled the other branches and also acted as the main powerhouse to protect it. To his surprise, Cyril, who was a necromancer by profession, was extremely quick to study Va catch up with how the way of business worked. Just like magic, he was becoming very efficient in processing and handling documents and transactions, as if he too inherited Khan's eidetic memory. Ronan, on the other hand, was left in charge of Khan's new mansion, which was named as the Wayne Manor by Khan for reasons unknown. And Alfred, his main butler who got the job as soon as Khan heard the name, was in charge of acting as his main attendee, and one who managed the property with the highest authority in case Khan Va, his subordinates, were not present. Armin, the subordinate with a legendary class who also had alchemy Va healing abilities, finally gained access to tons of resources and medicinal ingredients after Khan spent millions of gold coins and bought them for him. Khan knew that Omega Va 6 generals were no longer just brainless subordinates who abided by his commands without thinking twice. All of them had sentient will now, and they were evolving as living beings with each passing day, having their own thought process and personality traits. But since the master himself was an amalgamation of peculiar personality traits and different tastes, no way would his creations be normal. Omega was a sword freak who only cared about practicing and perfecting his sword skills. Cyril was a sadistic creep who just wanted to study and experiment with dead bodies by cutting them whenever he had free time. Jugram was a musclehead, and like his job class, he thrived on discipline and strength. He would often put all the security personnel in a strong practicing regime like some military drill sergeant. Ronan was a quiet person but actually liked collecting information on everyone and everything around him. Unlike Khan, he was so cautious that he asked Khan to give him 200 assassins and deployed them in the shadows of all the people who worked in their mansion and security. And the biggest freak out of all of them was Armin. The seemingly harmless and kind-looking guy was actually a maniac who studied alchemy recipes, potions, and tried to create new types of poisons. But what made Khan facepalm himself was that for testing all these new recipes Va poisons, Armin was using himself as a test subject. Since he had tons of SSS rank healing skills and even a legendary rank ability that could bring back someone from death if used under certain conditions, such as a short time after death and body being intact, he was suffering and learning through trial and error by himself. Like how a mad scientist would sacrifice their own body and mind for the sake of proving their research right. The only ones left were Blackwell, Oliver va Rudra. In the past week, Khan made the arrangements and set up an office full of transmission artifacts that covered 300 kilometers of distance, all of them connecting him to all the main offices and shops should something of importance came up and he needed to be informed about it as soon as possible. More like a direct command base from where he would send out orders to his people. So Khan was finally free to put time into studying magic. Something that was far more important, but so far, neither did he have the free time nor he had enough resources required for it. And since he wasn't a 15-year-old kid anymore, he didn't want to waste his time by joining a magic academy in the capital. He had enough confidence in himself that given enough time and practice, he would be able to increase his skills and proficiency just like he did with his swordsmanship. Although he was jack of all trades and master of none. This also entailed that he could reach the top in all of them. And the main reason he thought so was because he had the biggest helper that no one else, not even the rest of the heroes summoned in this world had. And that was the weapon mastery va combat technique mastery blessings given by the war deity himself. Contrary to his previous beliefs, the combat technique mastery blessing was also applicable for magical skills and spells than just physical attacks. All he needed was proper knowledge va understanding of magic itself, and he could soar through the sky in months while it took others nearly decades. Khan now stood in his new study room and took nearly 40 books out of his space ring. These were exactly the books he found in the space ring of the semi-saint rank elf magician who tried to kill him in Flavit City, Solomon Elfenheim. The elven mage who spent 2 centuries studying and gathering useful books and resources related to magic, ultimately gifted Khan the top-grade archives people studying magic would never get their hands on in their lifetime. Khan took a deep breath and grabbed a violet cover book. The cover itself piqued Khan's curiosity as soon as he read the title. The true meaning of magic. What is magic? Is it an external force? Or is it a part of nature itself? Is it present in everything in the world? Or is it accessible only to the gifted beings? The first introductory lines of the book Khan held in his hands started with the most basic questions, yet the very foundation of studying and understanding the concept behind magic itself. According to the book, the magic in Vantria wasn't just something in nature but one of the constituents of the matter itself. Just like on Earth, where atoms created matter, magic was the binding force that was present along with these atoms. But given the amount of magic that was present in this world and its density present in nature itself, it was completely negligible. Since the external force itself was so dense, many living creatures didn't even feel any magic present inside their own bodies. And because of that, a very less amount of inhabitants in this world could use magic. Let it be a magician or a swordsman, all of them had to use magic as a form of medium to perform their skills va abilities. But only the ones who had the affinity towards mana, a condensed form of magical energy, could efficiently use them. And by either utilizing mana ores or monster cores, they could raise their levels and then raise their affinity, physical strength, and compatibility with the mana itself. Even if you belonged to a physical class job or had physical traits that made you strong, mana was the main driving force behind it, which made your physique far stronger than someone without any access to mana ever could. And that's why those who could use and manipulate it were like powerhouses than those who couldn't. Even a beginner fighter class being was stronger than 10 beings of their species and race. And the key difference was mana, which made it possible. In Rocco's empire, the ratio was 30 out of 100 people who had the affinity and access to it. But there was also another way. And that was to trigger this inherent connection to magic by using monster cores va mana ores to forcefully invoke that ability. This was the most effective way to awaken and see whether one had the affinity or their bodies had no potential. And this method was already practiced in schools, and people could test it in places provided by the government or any private organization. This brought out 5 to 8 additional people in the equation. And anyone who didn't qualify or awoke their affinity before crossing the age of 30 meant that they truly had no way to use it in their life. And because of that, only those who kept rising in ranks after invoking their job class had far stronger bodies and a longer lifespan than normal citizens. This law also applied to monsters, other magical creatures and beings in the world. Just that they didn't go through some test but rather lived it as if it didn't matter. For them, rising in levels and rank meant an increase in physical growth and abilities. and the higher the rank, the more evolved creatures they would be. This also explained why the majority of Khan's lord rank and above subordinates were more than 10-meter giant creatures. Let it be Omega, Serral, Blackwell, or Rudra. Since the base creatures used for their evolution were already this big and high-ranked, making them appear like giant creatures than what Khan had seen and read in novels and mangas of his world. Because on Earth, a Leakin like Omega would be 4 to 5 meters tall at best, but in Vantria, his height and build was 12 meters tall, that was triple the height of a normal house. The same went for Blackwell, Jugram va Serral. Even Rudra was 25 meters tall when he slithered normally. If it was Earth, he would be comparable to King Kong in height, but in this world, there were far bigger creatures than him, and he was only a mythical creature. There were still god beasts and dragons above his rank. Who knew if one day, Rudra could rise in levels and rank to become as big as Godzilla or maybe even the world serpent from the Norse mythology. And that is how magic was basically the very aspect of life and creation that ran everything in this world. The reason why Khan was adamant about learning magic and improving his skills was that after seeing the first stage Saint Magician fight that day, he saw just how lethal and destructive magic spells were that decimated and obliterated everything in the 5-kilometer radius. Compared to him, Khan's magical spells and abilities that he got by killing and absorbing others looked like attempts made by kindergarten children. He knew the spells and the tricks, but his foundation was as hollow as it could come. And that is why, not a single one of his magical skills, including the dark magic va darkness element spells and skills that were already made from one of the strongest elements in the world, never truly reached their highest potential and effectiveness. He won't always be lucky to come out alive by coincidence or using some underhanded method when facing a true expert. Even someone with the same level and rank as him would come out on top if they had better knowledge and experience with magic and how to manipulate it at the best of their capability. So after binge reading on the extensive topic of magic and its working principles, Khan finally stopped at night and had a clear goal in his mind. From tomorrow onwards, I will begin my proper training, spoke Khan with newfound clarity. Because only studying never made improvements without actual practical applications. Just like the training with his physical classes and weapon skills, there were no shortcuts when it came to magic either. So he planned to carry his studying and practice his skills simultaneously. Because this was the period of his real beginning as a magician. This was the time for the real grind. The next morning, Khan stood in the underground training facility while being dressed in casual indoor clothes. The new mansion he bought a few weeks ago had a history behind it. This property previously belonged to a fallen noble clan that served in the military and had hundreds of their members train under this facility. And the clan head was a female centaur, one of the rare species in the empire. But after she fell in a war with one of the nearest empires 2 decades ago, the clan fell from prestige and authority since none of the descendants crossed the saint rank. And after being unable to maintain the clan's expenses as well as struggling to hold their positions in the military despite being a military-oriented clan, the leader had to put the mansion up for sale and move the clan headquarters to a more affordable place. And coincidentally, Khan was looking for a new place to live, and as soon as the house selling company informed him about this mansion, he bought it without a second thought. And the main reason was this training facility, which was made over decades of hard work and devised to help nearly 500 soldiers at once. Let it be mages, archers, and melee classes. The whole facility was something Khan desperately needed for quietly training without holding back, and so did his subordinate. The entire place spanned for 2 kilometers in radius with hundreds of instruments, training arenas for specific job classes and hundreds of magic formations and artifacts installed in here to hold its foundation, and it could even easily withstand a full-powered attack from a semi-saint. To Khan, this would be his own Batcave. There were 2 sections that were currently useful to him. One area filled with wooden tables and chairs to study magic, while the other was an open ground where multiple stone monoliths were fortified with magic formation to make them durable enough to stand against large powerful spells at the same time. He intended to use them for target practice and try variations of magical spells skills he had. After spending a few more hours and reading the beginning chapters of magical books of various elemental magic spells, he learned that unlike the majority of the Isekai worlds he read and watched in mangas and novels, you couldn't outright perform and use any elemental spells just because you could use magic. In Vantria, you must have the core knowledge and understanding of the type of element you were using to cast a spell. For example, if you wanted to cast a water-related spell, you must study and understand the mana signature of these elements. Just like how DNA inside every human differentiated them from others of their species. Then use that knowledge to adjust and manipulate the mana you had access to for matching the properties of these elements. After your mastery over mana manipulation over that element increased, you could ingrain the same composition in a spell. So that way, as long as you have enough understanding and experience of a particular element, you could cast spells related to it and then increase your mastery. But since Khan's foundation itself was non-existent when it came to magic va knowledge of mana manipulation, all the magical skills he had by absorbing others were like a house of cards, easy to break with a small breeze. But because of his levels and rank, they were far deadly to many people he faced till now. But it was one thing if he was in Flavit City where not a single saint existed, but in Rathna, he would be chewed out by the true experts before he could even cast a single spell. And this was the main reason why Solomon had completely suppressed him during their fight just with 4 different types of elemental attacks. Compared to the Elven Mage's spells, the ones Khan could use were like a sheet of paper facing a bullet. I guess I should start from the basics even though I can already use many spells. The spells va skills I have because of the ability absorption divine ability will only provide me with superficial force, but not the maximum output or effectiveness, said Khan and came in the open arena. Lighting va ventilation wasn't an issue in the place va plenty of artifacts were installed in the facility which prohibited any sound from leaking outside. First, he held a glass of water in his hand. Khan then created a big blob of water in his left palm and tried to feel the structure of water itself in both of these samples. Before, he thought it was just a state of matter, but due to his rank, Khan could now feel a slight amount of mana infused in the original glass of water. It wasn't just a physical state of matter, but also a force was a part of it that had a big influence on its structure and current physical form. "That's it!" exclaimed Khan as a sudden realization struck him. As per the law of conservation of energy, energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. It can only change one form to another, like how the water turned into ice in a solid state and then into vapor in the gaseous state. But in Vantria, mana itself was energy, and you could change the state of the matter itself while casting a spell and use the mana present in the world to change its structure and give it any form you want. Khan dipped his fingers in the glass of water while maintaining the blob afloat in the air. After feeling both of them, he felt like the original sample in the glass was much denser and contracted than the water from the spell he created. Despite the same state of physical form, the mana density of his spell was only 40% of the original sample. In other words, his own spell was less than half times effective compared to the original thing. No wonder all of my skills and spells with mana are very weak compared to others. So that's why Arkham's mana-infused skills and attacks were many times stronger than my aura blades, said Khan. Even his swordsmanship skills had mana factored in them. So if he had only half-ass mastery over one thing, he would never be able to break past his limits, and none of the merged skills he had from synthesis divine ability would ever cross the saint rank. The first thing I must learn is not to study the spells but the elements themselves, and then use them to create the elemental spells with real power behind them. Although it will take more time than my original estimations, it would still build me a strong and firm foundation, thought Khan as he tried to manipulate the density and structure of mana in the spell while trying to match it with the original water sample in the glass. There were steps you simply couldn't skip in pursuit of power and mastery. This wasn't about training his physical skills and weapons techniques anymore, but to train his mind va soul as well if he wanted to be the strongest guy in the room. Mana manipulation, the most important form of practice required for casting effective and powerful spells, was something Khan currently needed to master. In the past week after he started his magic training, what he did was understand the composition of various elements such as water, wind, fire, stone, and lightning. The main reason was that he had most of the offensive skills va spells which involved these 4 elements. Even the dark lightning strike consisted of the lightning element, which was half of the force behind the attack. And since Khan had no sources available to read and study about dark magic in his current situation, He had to at least improve his mastery over this element. In his hands were two things that he had been studying since yesterday. One was soil and the other was a burning lamp. He started studying different elements by trying to feel the connection between him and the mana which was part of these things. But now, it was more about feeling and mastering the use of the basic ingredients of the dish he was going to cook instead of learning the recipe. Casting these elemental spells was something he could already do, but while holding the samples in his hands, he sensed that his summoned elemental spells are nothing but a poor imitation and aren't dense or strong enough to give the maximum output in front of the real deal. The past week since he started went into nothing but him trying to establish a proper connection with the mana present in these things and then trying to recreate them from scratch using mana restructuring. Although his affinity was increasing each day, the progress was extremely small. Khan also realized that if not for his levels and rank, he wouldn't even be able to reach this stage in such a short time and maybe would need to spend months for the progress he made in just a week. Being a reincarnator in another world while given divine abilities and blessings from the gods had its perks vahaks. What Khan was trying to do now was push past his current limits and exceed his understanding of mana. Although his photographic memory helped him read and remember everything, the physical and mental limitations of one's body couldn't be surpassed automatically when it came to mana. Maybe the other heroes have top-grade instructors teaching them these things and mapped out their path already. That damn predecessor of mine had to go for the most radical way and kill off all the heroes, just to create more trouble for me. He thought. Khan already felt that other summoned heroes must have everything they needed in order to become strong or capable, let it be their fighting techniques or magical skills. At this moment, Khan felt jealous of the others who were summoned just like him because how easily they already had the road paved out for them. In his case, he was the one constructing the road by himself. Let it be knowledge, resources, guidance, and facilities, Khan was certain he was already the weakest among the bunch. But there was no point in crying over the spilled milk. So he had no choice but to carry on with his use methods and available options. One thing he learned from the experience was that by controlling the flow of mana present in any substance, he could forcefully change their forms easily. While practicing fire spells, he increased the friction of mana and created fire, and with more practice, the intensity of the fire he conjured increased little by little, and so did his understanding and control over that element. For wind spells, Khan increased the speed of the mana in gaseous form, while he increased density to create ground spells and extremely volatile movements of mana to create lightning spells. Although not perfect, he was making steady progress with each passing day. On a few occasions, Khan was so immersed in practicing his skills that he even forgot to eat. Only when Alfred personally came to inform him about the time for dinner did he come back to reality. He learned how to recreate and command various elements, then how to adjust their density and speed. He was learning new things every day. And slowly as he tried to manipulate the mana and give it a similar structure and form the matter-va physical state, the force behind the magic spells he created started increasing at a noticeable rate. The current progress was already 5% more than what he could do previously. But after another week passed by, Khan felt like he hit a plateau and reached the maximum extent of his ability. He now reached a level where he felt like his own body was his shackles that stopped him from becoming stronger and improving, as if he was now jailed inside a prison of his own making. But instead of feeling disheartened or giving up, he knew that all of this was part of the procedure. Just like how he had to steadily progress in his weapons mastery and combat techniques previously. To him, it was all worth it to learn and start from scratch because if he couldn't even master mana, how would he master world energy? If he broke through to Saint rank without proper understanding and use of mana, he would have a lot of trouble in sensing and utilizing the world energy. Khan didn't want to become the weakest of saints when he finally broke through. All of this was the foundational work for the future, and he had to make sure that he did it perfectly instead of suffering through the consequences of being hasty. 2 more weeks passed by as Khan continued his days studying and practicing magic spells in a routine, and one day when he was in a trance while handling and manipulating 2 different elemental spells, the system finally spoke after a month of silence. Congratulations to the host for becoming a beginner-rank magician. As soon as the system informed Khan, he was brought back from his trance and noticed a change in his body. His eyes opened wide quickly and he felt like something inside of him was trying to break. Crack, crack. A sudden crackling noise came inside from his body, and as if some form of restriction inside him was loosening up, a strong pressure was released. Boom! A loud boom resounded in the facility, and a blue aura made from mana erupted from Khan's body. As soon as the burst of mana subsided, he felt like the constraint on him regarding inner space which held mana inside him expanded for the first time. This was a breakthrough. Unlike before when he rose in ranks for weapon mastery and physical strength, this time, he felt like the surrounding area around him was now more vibrant and his senses became more acute despite being a semi-saint rank person already. Khan could sense small granules of condensed mana spread in the air, his vision and mind even clearer than before. The newfound understanding was something he hadn't experienced in his new life so far. But instead of getting excited or happy, the first thing he did was try to establish a connection to the mana that he could finally see when focused properly. Khan waved his hands and summoned the mana particles towards him, trying to coalesce them together and form a big orb. And once the orb was saturated, he tried to change the structure of the mana and turned the orb into a fireball spell. Compared to before he broke through, the now cast fireball spell felt twice more efficient, hotter, and the density was multiplied by many times. So that's how those magicians became so overwhelmingly powerful. Not only do they use their inner reserves of mana, but they can borrow it from the environment around them as well. No wonder the difference between damage and area of effect they can do is many times bigger than any physical class jobs. These guys have a free supply of power already, said Khan after being enlightened with this fact. System, show me my current stats, and tell me what improvements happened to my body after breaking through to a beginner rank magician. He commanded. Following are the statistics of the host. Name, Khan host. Species, human. Job, all for one. Rank, semi-saint rank. Level, 138. Strength, 6,638. Agility, 5,097. Dexterity, 6,247. Defense, 5,617. Mana, 7,380. The host has increased the mana pool and storage capacity by 500 stat points after breaking through to the beginning rank magician. With each rank up in this class, the host will gain an additional 1,000 stats for mana. The higher the rank and levels, the more mana capacity shall increase. Revealed the system. This does put a smile on my face, said Khan after hearing the response. The 3 weeks of arduous and consistent training that was putting a lot of mental stress on him finally paid off. Breaking through physical ranks was one thing, he could do it with training and weapons mastery. But for magic, it was his own mind and understanding of mana and spells that could help him rise in ranks. Currently, he didn't have any ability that could increase his comprehensive performance in studying magic. Even his eidetic memory couldn't help him as this was a completely new field. Only through improving his knowledge and experience would he be able to reach higher ranks. Khan was no natural-born genius, and even his divine abilities va blessings could get him so far. Without putting in the effort, he won't achieve anything. And if he ignored it, only a regretful death will await him in the future if his identity was ever revealed, as the entire world would hunt him because he was the hero of darkness. Baby steps, buddy, baby steps, said Khan as he patted himself on the shoulder. I guess I should start mastering the other elements as soon as I'm done with these two. Maybe they'll help raise my rank and comprehension even more. He thought, wait, how can I forget this? A sudden realization struck him. Despite having an eidetic memory, he had completely forgotten about one of the key sets of skills he already had, but because he was only using weapon skills ever since he came to Rathna, he ended up ignoring these skills. Show me all the skills and abilities I have from absorbing Solomon va eating his core, commanded Khan. The semi-saint magician was someone extremely well-versed being in magic, and Khan finally had a reason to use the skills he got from the elven mage. Following are the skills va abilities the host acquired from the individual named Solomon Elfenheim. Elemental Fusion, A rank. Passive. Allows the host to create elemental mana orbs and use them as a source for elemental spells and long-range attacks. Light Barrier, A rank, active, allows the host to create a defensive barrier made from light element. Elemental transformation, S rank, passive, allows the host to transform the form of the elemental spells to another element. Casting time for magic spells reduced by 35%. Space haste, A rank, active, allows the host to use space magic to travel to 1 kilometer space in any direction. The host is required to study and comprehend this ability. Replied the system, "That's it. Elemental fusion va elemental transformation is what I need the most now," said Khan as a joyous smile appeared on his face. The former ability was exactly what Solomon used to cast those elemental orbs and attack Khan from a long distance, obliterating everything where they hit. And all of those spells had completely different elements such as wind and fire ingrained in them, giving all a different effect of damage output and variations. The latter ability was something even more powerful, because not only it would help him cast spells much faster and efficiently but also allow him to change the mana structure of his spells and change the elements of his attacks at a fast pace. At this moment, only one thought came to his mind as he asked himself, "Should I go and hunt some more elven mages?" The most absurd idea came to Khan's mind as soon as he saw the merits of having the innate abilities of the elven race. This race already had a high affinity towards magic and traits that helped them be more sensitive and efficient in using it. These are only a rank and yet so useful. If I can raise them to saint rank, maybe I'll be able to have many offensive skills and also master different elemental spells very quickly. These people are so gifted with magic. It's quite unfair to other species, he thought, because if not for Solomon being an elf, Khan didn't think he would have gotten these two amazing passive abilities from some other mage. These were the specific traits of the elven race and that too of a semi-saint mage, the creme de la creme. Never would the 200-years-old mage have ever imagined that one day, his centuries of hard work along with the abilities he developed and mastered would benefit his enemy instead. Khan then started casting various fire and water spells, the two elements he was currently proficient in since they were much easier to control and the mana density was manageable in his current state compared to wind, earth, and lightning elements. He also came to a realization that the higher your rank was as a mage, the more mana you would be able to manipulate and harness from the surroundings. He could sense the mana molecules present in a 10-meter radius for now. Just studying magic won't cut it. I need to restart my combat and weapons practice as well, so that I can use the mana more efficiently and increase the output of my aura swords and attacks. It will also help me form that mind-body connection to reach the peak in both fields. If I manage to master and incorporate all of my weapon skills and magical abilities together, I will have a bigger advantage over the other saints of this world," murmured Khan to himself, because of the immense potential he could achieve in the future in case he managed to reach the pinnacle in physical strength and magical abilities, was something that would make him a Leviathan with basically no disadvantages. While facing others of different classes and expertise, he would know how best to counter them as well as have many advantages that his enemies didn't. And also there was always an element of surprise that he could use as a trump card at the last moment. Because becoming a full-fledged saint who was already well-versed in both weapons and magic was not even possible for the majority of the inhabitants of this world. Only variants of different species, legendary class/job individuals, maybe god beasts, dragons, and the chosen heroes like him had this advantage. Khan slapped himself on the face again to bring back his attention to the present moment. Overthinking never changes the outcome, only actions can. The next day, Khan restarted his weapons and combat techniques training after almost 5 months of break ever since he left Flavit City and came to the capital of the empire. Focusing on one aspect while leaving out the other just because his priorities were different would come to bite him back later. Since there were some books records left in this underground facility about various training regimes and combat techniques, Khan found this moment as the best opportunity to restart from the basics and polish his rusty skills again. If his body form wasn't in peak condition, then he wouldn't be able to fight at his best either. So being ignorant was no longer an option. Because Khan was no longer playing games with small gully thugs where you could act like smarty pants badass protagonist in front of a bunch of weaklings. His playing field was completely different compared to the main characters of the novels and mangas he used to read. There were plenty of people who could kill him with a slap and even use him for their personal gains, like how the vampire lord of the Vanderite clan did. No matter how big of a smart, calculative, intelligent person he was, he couldn't always foresee the future or know the true intentions of others. This was a harsh lesson he learned recently. Because the biggest threat wasn't the person who was in control, but the one who let that person think that they were in control. The business was all set up. Now what he needed was to invest time in training himself, increase his levels by eating those high-rank cores on a daily basis, since he didn't have any skill or ability that helped him directly absorb the mana energy in them. So staying true to a course was the only thing he could do now, as there always won't be a sudden spike of levels ranks just because he ate a strong being's core or absorbed their abilities. The beginner's luck period was already gone, so now it was time to climb Mount Everest slowly and steadily. Tap, tap. A set of footsteps were heard when Khan had just finished his workout and basic weapons practice. He wasn't using any of his skills and senses as a semi-saint, but practicing with the strength of a normal person, and hence, he was sweating heavily. "What is it?" asked Khan to a subordinate dressed in white and purple mage robes who also wore glasses like a scholar. It was none other than Cyril, the undead necromancer. Recently, Cyril was left in charge of handling the business as Khan's proxy because he was the most intelligent one of all the subordinates. Although Jugram was the most hard-working one, Cyril was more suitable to take Khan's place because he inherited Khan's eidetic memory and his calculative nature. "Master, I need your permission for something," said Cyril in a mature and soft tone. "For what?" asked Khan curiously. Cyril could always talk with Khan telepathically, but if he came to talk in person, means it was something of importance. In response, Cyril replied with a kind and gentle smile on his face. "Nothing much. I just wanted to commit a genocide." Khan stood rooted on the spot as soon as he heard the undead subordinate's request. He wanted to commit a genocide? What kind of request was that? It took Khan completely off guard, as he hadn't expected the necromancer to make such a request. "Are you out of your goddamn mind?" asked Khan loudly in response to the unusual request. "Master, there's a reason. I can't repress my urge to kill anymore. So a teeny tiny bit of mass murder will help me greatly," replied Cyril with a benign smile. His tone was completely gentle, as if he was doing the world a favor. Khan raised his eyebrow after the explanation, as if the subordinate didn't think of the consequences. From his understanding of Cyril, he was much smarter than making such impulsive decisions. "Why is that? Weren't the bodies I gave you not enough to study for your research?" "They were, but they are high-grade specimens. I don't wish to waste or destroy them during the basic trials and experiments. Besides, I am a necromancer. I will grow weaker with time if I don't have my own army of undead and skeleton soldiers. All of them were destroyed in that dungeon before my demise. Since then, I have been barely holding back. I need many more bodies and skeletons to use as fodders. My research demands more of them with every step," explained Cyril as he pushed up his glasses with a forefinger. "So you're going to kill people just for a fresh stock?" asked Khan with squinted eyes. "Yes. Are you an idiot? Wouldn't that create unnecessary trouble if you go around killing people? And I thought you were smart," said Khan with a helpless expression. "What if I'm never caught?" said Cyril coyly. Khan folded his arms and rolled his eyes in disappointment like R.D. Jr. "Let me tell you, no matter how much you plan, there's always some kind of trail left behind for the capable people to find the truth. Then how about I use a method that can't be tracked?" spoke Cyril, and then elaborated the plan he had in mind. Khan carefully listened to the strategy and then weighed the pros and cons in his mind. The plan Cyril came up with was indeed very efficient and wouldn't cause them unnecessary trouble. "Fine. Do what you want. Just make sure you hide your identity and nobody should know your real face. And do it only at night. I still need you to hold command in my absence. I had my first breakthrough yesterday, so I can't lose the momentum now," ordered Khan as he gave Cyril the permission. "I shall obey, master. Please leave everything to me. I will handle things properly," he said and left the training facility. At the time of midnight, inside a desolate open ground that spanned for 3 kilometers and had more than 1,000 tombs, dozens of guards were on a patrol. A black centaur and a yellow-skinned mixed-blood human were on a patrol at one section of this cemetery. Tap, tap, tap. I hate it when they give me the night shift. Who the hell is going to come here and rob the dead skeletons? This is not even a burial site for the rich but the poorest of the poor, complained the centaur as his hooves made loud tapping noise in this silent and eerie surrounding. Stop being so grumpy. Job is job, you're new so you'll get used to it soon, said the human in a bored tone. The night was cold and chaotic, yet the protectors of the dead had to perform their duty despite the shivering breeze passing by. Both the guards kept walking while chatting between themselves as complaining wouldn't help in their job at all. Swoosh! A sudden sound of something passing by was heard by the human. Hey, you heard that? I think something just passed from here. He spoke. Ugh! Are you sure that it's not just wind? We're in an open and silent cemetery. The sound is always amplified, replied the centaur. No, I'm sure I heard something. My gut feeling says there's someone here, said the human. Hey, aren't you the experienced one here? Why do I feel like you're just acting delusional? Or could it be that you're scared? Asked the centaur coyly. Swoosh! A whirl of wind suddenly hit the guards from the dark corners between the tombs. This is getting too cold so suddenly. Let's leave, said the centaur as he rubbed his arms off. War! A sudden hoarse whisper landed on their ears and both of them got goosebumps on their body. Grr! Another ghastly voice landed on their ears from a direction they couldn't decide. The centaur, who had a halberd and a small wooden shield in his hand, felt like something was amiss. Who's there? Show yourself, he shouted while mustering courage. This can't be. So it's true, said the human while stuttering. What the hell are you talking about? Don't try to scare me, reprimanded the centaur as he gave a deathly stare to the human guard. But rather than speaking, the human pointed his fingers towards their left. The next moment, however, both of them were rooted on the spot. Clang, crang, crack, war! A ghastly groan resounded as a figure of dozens of walking corpses was revealed to both of the guards, and they both froze on the spot with immense fear as if they got paralyzed. The human mustered all his courage and jumped on the back of the centaur, who half of the body was of a horse. Rather than trying to face the incoming undead they just saw, the human guard yelled at the centaur with all his might. Run, Forrest, run! As soon as the guards ran with the fear for their lives, the rotten-bodied undead who were charging at them stopped in movements, and as if heeding a form of command, they returned towards their previous direction. With steady steps, the dozen of zombie-like undeads headed towards a quiet section of this huge cemetery that looked completely unattended. There was no light, no sound or anything, but the undeads kept walking as if they were heading towards some sort of beacon. Step, step. The dried leaves rustled after being stepped upon as these undeads gathered around a dark dome which was hard to notice under the blanket of this dark night. Just when they entered inside this dome, a completely different surrounding came to be. Over 40 graves were dug up, and the skeletons and the rotten corpses inside the tombs were now being pulled up as a man dressed in black mage robes with a scepter that had a green orb shining brightly at the top. His silver hair were his striking part of the appearance, and this mage himself was using dark-colored mana to forcefully take off the heavy stone slabs above the grounds. This 300 meters area was completely encapsulated inside this dark dome, which also prohibited any form of noise or light leaking outside. Those damn wrenches! Now I don't have a lot of time before they show up with more people. If the master hadn't prohibited me from killing, I would have had more time. Cursed this mage who was using dark magic to rob the graves. On the other side was a big heap of dead bodies and skeletons that had dried a long time ago, and a dark green aura was encircling this tall heap of bones and rotten corpses. At least scaring them away gave me some more time to hide everything that happened here and cover my tracks, he said. This was Cyril in his new get-up after changing his appearance just like Khan had instructed him this morning. He too now had a metamorphosis bloodline imparted by Khan after he achieved the 100% loyalty. So taking a different human form was within his reach. Since he didn't have any other bloodlines like Khan, he had to opt out for changing facial structures and hair of his human form to avoid suspicion in case he was caught. Whatever happened during his night strolls shouldn't affect his other identity and the company. So he too found it reasonable to get a different persona just like his master often did in the form of Azrael and recently as Zeus. After he was done robbing all the dead bodies and leaving their worldly belongings such as their clothes and ornaments in their graves, he pulled all the new stock in his personal space ring. This morning, he too gained one of the space rings that once belonged to the rich members of the Chamber of Commerce who were robbed by Khan. And since the inner space was as big as a warehouse, it was very useful for him. Now, I hope this restoration artifact is worth the 2 million gold I paid, he said and put his mana inside a star-shaped orange magic artifact. A thin film of yellow aura was released from this artifact and it was spread across all the directions in the surrounding area. One by one, all the shaken and pulled out tombstones, the cracked ground and broken grass on the ground started relocating themselves and the soil itself got back to the place it once belonged to. In just a minute, the entire area under this black isolation barrier was replaced by a tranquil and peaceful ground, no longer looking like the destroyed property after Cyril took out dead bodies by ripping off the resting site of all these people belonging to different races and species. Good enough for the first haul, said Cyril, and the next second, the dark barrier completely disappeared in the dark of the night along with the figure of the necromancer. Step, step, step. I'm telling you, we both saw those dead bodies and skeletons walking right from here, spoke the centaur. Both of them returned with nearly 20 more guards that were stationed here for protecting the gravesite. Really? Then why do I not see or sense anything here? Don't tell me you're just making an excuse to pass time. I don't like this type of joke. Alone a red master rank snakeskin spearman. He could sense heat signatures and different kinds of scents as part of his innate skills. But now, he didn't find anything as if even the air was unaffected in this area. He berated the duo for slacking off and went off his way to continue his duty. The next morning, when Khan had just started his weapons and magic training after a light breakfast, Cyril entered the facility and told Khan that he needs a section of it to use as a research facility since he can't study the bodies openly and in a congested place. Since this entire training facility itself spanned for 2 kilometers and had multiple places to train and study magic and do research as well, Khan gave him the keys to unlock a section on the far east where he could peacefully do his research. Khan himself didn't feel bad now about how Cyril was desecrating the dead. After the recent experience with the first rank mage, the clan leader of the Vanderite clan and the Chamber of Commerce, Khan realized a major flaw in his behavior, that he paid too much attention to his moral code and things he didn't wish to cross a line with. It was one thing if this was Earth where his upbringing and sense of judgment made him the man he was. But now, this entire world was different and so was he. And to strive towards the path of strength. There were many things he needed to abolish, including his sense of moral code and honor. He needed time to come to terms with them slowly and then make the necessary changes in his thought process. Or one day he would die because of his morality from the past life. Cyril, on the other hand, had an excited expression on his face. He was finally getting the resources and a facility he needed for quite some time. Just after looking at his ecstatic expression, Khan remembered a Jack, the undead summoner whose body and core were mixed with Cyril. This trait of Cyril's personality definitely came from the undead who killed Khan in the Brahmner dungeon once. As soon as Cyril set up his new research facility after making some arrangements in a few hours, he started maniacally without holding back. Ha 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 ha. Finally, I will create my own army and become my liege's favorite and most powerful subordinate. Inside the underground facility below the Wayne Manor, a black-haired mage was carrying different variations of magic spells and trying to mix the different specimens of corpses and bones. Unlike Khan, Cyril had an inherent understanding of his abilities via magical skills that were passed down to him from the memories of the undead summoner. Just that he too needed to practice and get experience so he could make his own body compatible with the skills first. At this moment, he was still in his human form and hence, his attributes were reduced by 20 levels. But to diligent researchers like him, this was also an opportunity to test his limits and improve upon them. In front of him were 14 dried dead bodies, each of them belonging to different species such as humans, demi-humans, centaurs, boaters, and thralls. Many cut-down limbs and torsos were now placed in a wide and long wooden table that could hold a feast in a certain magic school that had a principal who always gave all the points to Gryffindor. Cyril was writing down the log of the experiments after trying to attach different body parts together and then summon that specimen as his undead. Day 5, Log 73. The new specimen shows signs of synergy between body parts one added, but yet it hasn't been able to react to all the mana output. Even the undead summoning magic failed to keep the specimen intact for more than 5 minutes before the body itself broke down, and in some cases, it crumbled down and turned into dust. Spoke Cyril as he wrote in the book at the same time. From the past 5 days, he was visiting and robbing new graveyards at night. And in the new facility he redesigned to meet his needs, he started studying and creating new undead and skeletal soldiers using the dead bodies. He cut, molded and sewed limbs from different species and attached them together. Cyril had been trying to summon these creatures as his undead, but for reasons unknown, the new resultant specimens were not sustainable. This problem didn't happen when he created undead soldiers from a single intact body. The majority of the experiments crumbled and broke down after a short time of the summoning, rendering his efforts useless. Day 5, Log 74. I'm making steady progress, but the difference in mana structure present in these test subjects is prohibiting a result that is compatible and possesses all of their abilities. At this rate, the supply will not meet the demand. I need more bodies for further research, said Cyril aka Dr. Frankenstein. Given the number of trials and errors he had to go through, Cyril noticed that it wasn't effective. The quantity was very lacking for the long term. To improve his skills and efficiency as a necromancer, he needed more resources. Since his master was in closed-room studies of magic, he couldn't ask for help either, as he knew how hard it was for anyone to comprehend master the ins and outs of magic. I guess I have no choice but to shake some trees, he said, and left the facility to do his daily daytime job as one of the people running the Bloodborne Company. Baltimore Cemetery. One of the largest cemeteries that spanned for 5 kilometers long and held the graves of over 10,000 deceased people in Rukon District. Even getting a couple of meters of space for your burial site cost a lot. It was manageable for humans, but for the other species who normally sized much bigger in height and width, it was an exorbitant amount. So only the rich and powerful who wanted a well-mandated and sizable tomb as their resting place would come to buy out the plot here. There were even master rank guards left in charge of the security measures. What the rich feared the most was that someone desecrating their resting place or robbed their belongings that would be buried with them. For the upper class of the society, they wanted to die as someone rich while being buried with money and costly ornaments. And hence, many opted for such highly secured cemeteries that ensured the safety of their tombs. During the night, inside the main office building of this cemetery management that was placed at the far left, a blue demonkin knocked on a door. "Sir, there's someone to see you," said the attendee. "Let them in," ordered a yellow 3-meter-tall wolfkin who emitted the aura of a peak master rank individual. Step, step. A set of footsteps were heard as a mage dressed in black robes who held a black scepter in his hands walked in. The lionkin gestured the mage to sit on the seat across his table and spoke. "How may I help you?" he asked. "Greetings, Mr. Logan," said the mage and passed out a space ring over the table. "What's this?" asked Logan the wolfkin. "Check the contents and you might get an idea why I am here," said the shoulder-length silver-haired human mage. As soon as Logan checked what was inside, he was left frozen on the spot. He looked at the mage with eyes full of disbelief and asked with a curious tone, "The ring has 10 million gold coins. This much amount. What do you want?" he asked. "I assume you're fully aware of what could someone like me with money to spend need from someone like you who manages and runs this vast graveyard that houses so many deceased people," said the mage in black in a benign tone, completely unaffected by this query. Logan gave him an understanding gaze as if this wasn't his first time facing such a situation. He took out an isolation artifact and sealed the room. "At least tell me your name first before we get to business," he said in a stern tone. To his question, the mage didn't reply with words, but instead, he quickly released his aura, extremely dense and domineering aura that instantly filled the entire room. "A peak grandmaster," thought Logan with an aghast expression. "Oh, where are my manners? I apologize for the late introductions. I have had many names, but these days people call me." He took a pause and then continued in a mischievous tone. "Loki." The wolfkin named Logan, who had yellow fur and razor-sharp claws, now stood up and looked at Loki, the mage adorned in black robes. The human in front of him was a peak grandmaster mage. Peak grandmasters were existences that could kill 1,000 people with their strength and capabilities. And the one in front of him was actually a mage as well. They had many offensive skills that could kill hundreds of enemies with a single spell. Before the mage revealed his aura, Logan hadn't even managed to sense it. He quickly bowed in respect towards the mage and asked in an obedient tone. Offending this powerhouse with improper behavior would spell his ultimate death. "May I ask, what exactly do you want, sir? I don't think anyone of your grand stature would pay this hefty amount for having just one or two tombs of top powerful figures ransacked," he said, trying to see the silver-haired mage's reaction. "I see that I came to meet the right person, and I presume I'm not the only one you've made such deals with," replied Loki in his calm yet eerie tone that would give shivers to anyone who heard it. "What I want isn't to rob the belongings or any wealth buried in the tombs, but a steady supply of recently buried bodies and old skeletons. If you can provide me with that, the 10 million are yours," said Loki. "Really? You're not joking, right?" "I mean, sir," asked the wolfkin hurriedly, "you deliver, I pay. Simple as that. And I don't think I need to remind you if you decide to leak any info or try to scam me," spoke Loki with a benign smile. "Yes, sir. I understand. How many do you need?" asked the fear-stricken wolf after the subtle warning from the mage. 500 a week. Plus I want fresh corpses that were recently buried as well." "Can you do that?" 500. That's just too much. It will attract too much attention," replied Logan. "Oh, please. I know how much you earn annually. Even if you were to bribe all the other guards and people who work the second job for you, you would still make more than 100 times what you earn normally. If you can't even manage that much, then maybe I should go somewhere else," said Loki and pulled back the space ring that was on the table. "No, wait. I'll do it. Just give me some time before I get the first batch of 100 bodies ready," said Logan haphazardly. This was like a goose laying golden eggs for him. Even normally, he would get 1 million at best from the top forces who had peculiar tastes and things to do with dead bodies. Some wanted them for research, while some people wanted to harvest the cores left in them. And some even had weird and inexplicable fetishes with corpses. So this wasn't something new to him after working for a decade in this job. "Good. I will come 2 days later at the same time," said Loki, and discussed a few more details and plans about the means of transport and how to quietly get the job done. Neither party wanted any trouble and attention towards their deal, so everything was to be thought out before they even began. Loki stood up after their discussion and decided to leave. But just as he was close to the door, he quickly released and directed all of his aura at Logan again as he spoke with a deathly voice. "Do not disappoint me, because I don't like failures and neither do I show any mercy. Do you understand me?" warned Loki. Logan, whose body was frozen under this heavy and insurmountable aura filled with bloodlust, barely managed to muster all his strength and nodded in response. Instead of bothering to reply, Loki's figure suddenly disappeared as if the mage was never present here in the first place. Logan dropped on his knees, breathing heavily. The opportunity he got just now also came with a big risk. But the rewards were 100 times more than he could ever imagine. So he had no thoughts of scamming the mage. Little did the wolfkin know that at this very moment, there were dozens of Khan's assassin subordinates hidden in his shadow. Loki had already taken precautions before coming here and left his fellow subordinates who were ordered to kill Logan in case He reveals this deal to anyone he shouldn't have or tried to betray him. He was just as cautious as Khan after knowing the recent happenings in the past couple of months when he was still absorbing the cores. 10 days later, Cyril was doing his daily conduct of experiments on the rotten and bloodied corpse while creating more undead soldiers in the meantime. Recently, he was making many improvements in his skills and now, he could easily summon more than 100 undeads with a single attempt. And because of his unique class as a necromancer, he was getting more stronger and powerful with the increase in the numbers of his own soldiers. And in just 10 days of tiresome experimentation and mixing suitable bodies together, he now possessed 100 beginner-rank skeleton soldiers. This small army was more than enough to kill 2 peak master ranks beings. Day 17, Log 32. I have finally figured it out. After experimenting with over 800 bodies, I have finally found a way to create stronger and variant versions of undeads even with different species and bloodlines. Thanks to all the samples I received recently, I noticed that the most important factor to mix different species and their body parts together isn't just the mana structure, but also their respective bodies' affinity with elements. The reason why previous attempts failed was because I was mixing them without considering this aspect of their physical compatibility. Now I have finally found a way to create my own warriors, my own version of. Wrote Cyril and took a pause as he spoke the final words with a sinister and maniacal smile on his face. Grandmasters. Cyril was currently surrounded by rotten corpses via obnoxious stench, but this didn't bother the undead subordinate in the slightest, as if he was completely unaffected by the grimy scene in front of him. Currently, the necromancer subordinate was completely engrossed in performing his magical ritual and creating a new batch of soldiers. Each day, he could feel his mana capacity and efficiency increasing with each new batch of bodies he was getting. The deal with Logan was paying off and he was making significant improvements. Just yesterday, he mixed a centaur via Mithran's body to create a peak master rank undead warrior which had 4 legs and 4 arms with the bony and meaty snake-like extensions coming out of its body, having the structure of both the species. Good. As soon as I break through to legendary rank and gain more specimens of higher ranks, I will be able to create Grandmaster rank soldiers. Only if Master could take us back to hunting monsters. I would get plenty of new species as stock for my research. He. Awaken, said Cyril, and more than 100 corpses and skeletons in front of him started merging after being submerged inside a black shadow. He too could use the King of the Dead ability after Khan imparted the skill. So he too didn't need to worry about performing the summoning ritual one by one in a 500-meter radius. 30 new summons now stood in front of him, each taller and bigger than previous specimens. 3 bodies for each case to create a variant that possessed different physical traits. These amalgamations ranked from common to elite rank, while the humanoid specimens ranged from beginners to intermediate rank. Trash! He exclaimed as a look of disappointment appeared on his face. I guess low-tier bodies can never make up for good results even if I use high-grade cores or increase the numbers. He spoke. I need to meet him again, he said with a somber expression. When the night came, a mage sat under a big purple tree at a park that was filled with hundreds of people having a good time as the merry surrounding was bustling with various vendors selling foods and beverages to the customers. On one of these benches, Loki was waiting for someone. Just then he saw a foxkin woman and a demonkin male couple kissing in public, both having no regard for the place and crowd they were standing amongst. You, go to jail, he said and cast a small fire spell behind the foxkin's long tails and an ailment spell on the demonkin. Arr! Screamed the woman in a high-pitched voice. Blurg! The demonkin retched in the middle of the street. He! Chuckled Loki inwardly as he enjoyed the scene in front of him where the woman was screaming for help, trying to put off the fire on her fur of the tails while the demonkin was vomiting continuously. Enjoying the view, are you? Spoke a yellow wolfkin and sat on his side. I am indeed, said Loki to Logan, the wolfkin. Why have you called me, sir? Asked Logan. I have some requirements. I hope you can provide me double the numbers and with higher rank bodies if they're available. And don't worry, you'll be rewarded heftily, said Loki. still rejoicing as the scene in front of him was turning worse and the woman was almost lighting up like a torch and many people were trying to put off the fire. The demonkin, on the other hand, was almost wriggling on the ground while vomiting blood. "How much are we talking about here?" asked Logan curiously, completely unaffected by the fiasco. 5,000 per week and at least 30 intermediate to master rank specimens," said Loki in a carefree tone. "That much? I'm sorry, but that's too much. And even if you gave us half a month, we still won't manage this big number without alerting the others or getting implicated. Someone is bound to notice," said Logan in a helpless tone. "Then you're saying that you're incapable?" asked Loki as he stared at the wolfkin in angered eyes and slightly released his aura on the wolfkin. "No. Please let me finish," said Logan as he shuddered in fear. The deathly glare from the mage felt like a knife stabbed in his heart. "Just one branch isn't enough to meet your demands. I have some connections and people who can get what you want. There's an entire network of underground racket," said Logan as he spilled the beans, completely afraid of angering the mage and then facing a fate far worse than these two individuals in the middle of the street were facing. If the peak Grandmaster Mage could mortally harm these people just for fun, this powerhouse wouldn't mind torturing him either. Loki had already warned him that he didn't like incompetence, so the wolfkin had to offer an alternative to save his own skin. At the late night, he guided Loki to a secret and completely secluded building at the west end of the city. The castle-like building looked like a rundown and abandoned place from where both of them stood. "Oh, well done. Nobody can even see through place if they're not a Grandmaster Mage," said Loki in an approving tone. Logan then took out an X-shaped pendant and put it on the display towards the rusted gate. "We are with and without honor." He spoke the secret code. Krang. The gate suddenly moved and a Leshen halberd user suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The next moment, over a dozen guards dressed in armors and various weapons started emerging out of the invisible barriers. The sight in front of them flickered as Loki noticed an isolation barrier. They must be using some sort of artifacts to hide this property from everyone. He thought. "State your business," asked the green Leshen in a grim tone. Logan took a deep breath and spoke in a calm tone. "I'm here to meet the leader of the Nords," he said in a respectful tone before speaking the name of this leader. "Lord Odin." As soon as Logan spoke the name, all the guards at the entrance took an offensive stand and pointed their weapons at the duo of the wolfkin and the mage. "You dare speak our lord's name out in the open?" said the Leshen as he too pointed his halberd at them. Boom! But the next second, an immensely heavy and chaotic black aura was released in the surrounding area, and all of the guards were pushed down on the ground. Forget kneeling. They all were so weak compared to this domineering and majestic aura that none of them could even lift their heads. My, is that how you greet your customers? Pointing your weapons at them for absolutely no proper reason. So unprofessional. A grim and solemn voice landed on their ears. "I don't like when someone tries to threaten me," spoke Loki with an emotionless voice. "And ignorant fools who don't know their place deserve only one type of punishment," said Loki as his eyes filled with bloodlust. The next second, he waved his scepter and conjured a dozen of lightning and fire spells. "Sir Loki, no!" shouted Logan. "Ha ha 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 ha! Die, you insects!" exclaimed Loki and attacked all the guards who couldn't even muster the strength to move an inch. Boom! Crack! Bang! A. Mercy! Help! Terrified and wailing screams of the guards who were just doing their job filled the surrounding area as the echoes of their pleas resounded in this abandoned section of the small city they were in. Despite the Wolfkin's request, Loki killed all the guards right at the entrance of their headquarters. "You! What have you done? Why did you kill them?" asked Logan as his footsteps staggered. "My hands were itching," said Loki in a mischievous tone. "What the hell is this guy's problem? How am I going to explain this to Boss Odin? He will kill me for sure," cursed Logan. He noticed one thing. That the mage in front of him was an absolute psychopath who liked torturing and killing people for fun and took pleasure from it. "Now lead me to this Odin you speak of," commanded Loki. Logan had no choice but to comply, so he entered inside the barriers, and soon, a scenery completely contradictory to the dilapidated building they saw previously came to be. A large 3 stories building and hundreds of guards who were coming out of the main door were revealed to the duo. "Wait, I know Lord Odin. He will settle the matters. Just take us to him," said Logan as he held both of his hands up. "Logan, what the hell? We just saw this human kill our soldiers at the left entrance. Even if you're my cousin, how am I going to explain this to Lord Odin?" asked a blue wolfkin archer. "Just take us there. This sir behind me doesn't like waiting," he said, and signaled the leader of this small squad, his cousin, that this man wasn't to be messed with. At the highest floor and the innermost section of this warehouse-like building that was full of hundreds of people carrying things such as caskets and carts where bodies were covered under sheets and isolation barriers to prevent the smell from leaking out, sat a giant and burly middle-aged blue thrall. This figure leaked an aura of a peak Grandmaster brawler warrior who sat on a throne-like chair at the end of a highly decorated room. His blonde and wavy shoulder-length hair, the upper half of the body Thay was covered in lightweight armor, and his ripped abs and muscly shoulders were easy to see. And besides the chair of Odin were 2 2-meter-tall hounds, one white while the other black. An attendee opened the door and let the duo of Logan va Loki enter inside the main office. A gray aura was released from this thrall as he stared at Loki with eyes filled with absolute anger. But instead of cowering or trying to reason, Loki revealed his own dark aura filled with dominance in front of the thrall, putting everyone except the 2 of them in a frozen state. "Who are you and why did you kill my people?" asked the thrall, unaffected by the sudden reveal of a peak Grandmaster, as if he already sensed it when Loki was at the entrance. "Because they were being disrespectful," spoke Loki in a casual tone, as if he hadn't killed people but some mosquitoes. This even left the blue thrall named Odin speechless. This was the first time he saw someone kill people for so little. "This better be worth it. This is the first time someone has challenged my authority on my turf. So tell me, why have you come here? And why shouldn't I kill you?" asked the tall and muscular thrall. "Why else do you think? To do business. And as for the last part," spoke Loki and gave a sadistic grin, "you don't have what it takes. What the hell is wrong with this human? Why is he trying to pick a fight instead of smoothing things out?" thought Logan. If things went wrong, it would be his head for bringing this freak here. "Huh. Is that so? Well, let's talk about this deal you propose. If it isn't worth it, you might as well not leave out of here alive," spoke Odin, his gaze targeted at the black mage. Loki walked and sat on the sofa next to the blue thrall, acting carefree. "I am called Loki, and I am in need of your services since Logan here says you can provide me with what I want," said Loki. "How many do you want?" asked Odin without wasting time on beating around the bush. 15,000 a week, and I want 5,000 of them above intermediate and master rank. You can at least provide me that much, right?" Gasp. Even Odin gasped in surprise and asked Loki with a curious voice, "And how much will you pay?" "Given my current budget, how about 50 million? replied Loki. The next second, despite their previous qualms, Odin replied quickly as soon as he heard the amount. "Deal!" Regardless of how their encounter started, the blonde-haired thrall quickly shifted the topic as soon as the exorbitant amount of money was mentioned by the mage in black robes, no longer showing hostile appearance or body language. "Are you sure? Because I don't accept any delays. I want everything on time," said Loki. Normally, if someone was on the same level as you in terms of strength, one would be worried about a sudden attack and feel a sense of competition. But to Loki, he wasn't even bothered about angering Odin. Because if push came to shove and they fought here, the one to lose the most here would be the thrall. Since he was a mage and the warrior in front of him was a close combat brawler, he had the advantage in terms of range of attacks, skills, area of effect, and damage output during a fight. And as a result, this whole building itself would be reduced to ruins. Because of that very reason, Odin didn't attack him either, and hence, Loki initiated their conversation in a carefree manner. "You don't have to worry about that. Our network has been spread across the entire district for over a decade, and no one has found out anything yet. There are 57 big cemeteries holding more than 5 million corpses as we speak. Managing your requirements won't be a problem. We have people everywhere. We also have some of the top clans of the Empire using our services as well. So you may rest assured, explained Odin, like how one would try to sate the curiosity of their top client. And what about the 5,000 high-rank bodies? Asked Loki in a solemn tone, while his expression indicating that he was content with the answer from the thrall. Manageable. But may I ask, why do you need so many bodies? This number is simply too big no matter what your purpose is. Asked Odin. Do you always ask these types of questions to all your clients? Retorted Loki with an irritated expression. Fair enough. Let's discuss the further details then. I can't deliver without a down payment first. To this, Loki took out a space ring and threw it towards the thrall. Odin then checked the contents as soon as he caught the ring. He nodded and kept the ring in his pocket. What about the lives of my guards you killed? Asked Odin. About that. Pack them up for me. Count them as part of the deal too, said Loki in a sinister voice, as if this was something he planned to do from the very beginning when he killed the guards out of the blue. Afterwards, both the parties decided the arrangements regarding how and where they would deliver the goods. As he left, the meeting room had only 3 people who now decided to address some issues. Logan, where did you find that freak? Asked Odin as he released half of his aura on the wolfkin. He was a big customer from a couple of weeks. I couldn't meet the demand, so I thought it would be best to introduce him to you, Boss Odin. Only if I knew he was such a nutjob, I wouldn't have brought him here. Those guards were the ones who provoked him without checking who they were dealing with. Please. It's not my fault, explained Logan. Fine. Normally, we would receive 40 million at best for a job of this scale. You did bring in a fat sheep, so you're forgiven. You'll receive your 10% cut, said Odin. Boss, how could you let him go? He killed our people for no good reason, spoke the blue wolfkin in an angered tone. Hank, I've fought other peak grandmasters before, but this guy doesn't even feel like a human from his aura. From him, I can sense a completely different energy, something I haven't felt even from the saints I've met so far. What kind of energy you're talking about, boss? Asked Hank, Logan's cousin. You both might not have sensed it because you're too weak, but when I was talking to him, I was getting an extremely horrifying feeling, as if I was staring at death itself. Elaborated Odin with an aghast expression on why he didn't stress on the part about the dead people on his end. This guy is not simple. He paid with orichalcum plates. It's something only the top business enterprises in the capital or the prestigious noble clans use. And that sheer amount of bodies. I feel like he isn't alone. Either he is backed up by a force we can't afford to mess with, or there must be a new player in the game just like those clans. We need to know who we are dealing with first, said Odin with a somber expression. The reason why Odin had this feeling was because from the start to the end of their conversation, Loki didn't even show a slight sense of being wary about him trying to scam him or even threaten him. This type of confidence only came in 2 situations. 1, you are extremely powerful than the opposition. 2, when you have a tyrannical force backing you up. And since Loki was a peak grandmaster just like him, there was a bigger chance of the second scenario to be the main reason. Hank, you know what to do, said Odin. Hank, the blue peak master rank archer, nodded in response and left the room. When Loki was strolling through the streets of a populated zone, thinking about the ways of killing the thousands of people that were going about their lives in the busy streets without getting caught, he heard a warning in his head. Just like Khan had advised, he was cautious enough to not leave a trace behind. And hence, he had dozens of assassins who were given to him by his master and kept a lookout for him in case anyone tried to follow him. He already left a few assassins in the building where he made the deal with Odin. Even the peak grandmaster didn't realize that, unbeknownst to him, 3 assassins were hiding inside his shadow. I reckon I'm getting more than what we agreed on, spoke Loki with malicious intent after hearing that he was being followed by the people from Odin's side. His eyes glowed red the next second as he spoke in a grim tone. Let me show these people why they say that sometimes death is a mercy.